9/11, the war in Iraq, Saddam Hussein, Bin Laden. These are all things that are associated with George W. Bush. Was George W. Bush a good president? You're here to find out. Welcome to Was He a Good President, a new series I'm starting here at DetenteHQ, where we're going to look at each president's historical facts based on their foreign and domestic policies and decide once and for all, were they a good president? At the end, I'm going to give a rating 1 out of 10, and you're going to tell me who I should do next. At the end of the series, and throughout the series, we'll compare the presidents, and we'll make our own list of the top 50, compare it to experts' lists, and see where we go from there. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. First, I want to talk about the No Child Left Behind program, definitely an education part of his presidency. By the year 2014-15, all children were supposed to be able to know how to read or write according to the No Child Left Behind program. Although this didn't work out that way, 4th and 8th graders by the year had the highest math scores in the history of the United States, which is really an accomplishment. However, teachers would scold this program often because they felt like it was teaching kids how to take tests, but only tests. It wasn't teaching kids how to learn or teaching kids extra stuff they needed to know. It was just teaching kids test scores. Also, if you're going to talk about George Bush's domestic policy, we need to talk about the Great Recession. The Great Recession was caused mostly in part by the housing bubble crash, which was caused by low-income households getting loans taken out they couldn't pay back. These loans were then defaulted on, and it caused a lot of banks to collapse. Not banks, but like the savings and loans places that they had to be bailed out before. If you've ever taken a history class, this happened again. Because of this in the war, the federal debt would skyrocket under George W. Bush. The issue with the recession and with the war in Iraq was that it's not a typical war in that companies would actually grow because they had to buy war goods. It's a very limited war. We focused on a very limited war. In fact, we didn't even call it a war. The Iraq conflict would ruin a lot of families' lives and, in all honesty, didn't create that many jobs. However, the most notorious part about George Bush's career is definitely his foreign policy. His foreign policies marked the September 11th attacks, which left over 2,900 people dead. Although I think his handling of the domestic situation was good, his handling of the foreign situation really wasn't. We had been to war with Iraq 10 years prior in the Gulf War. Because of this, America had a common enemy in Iraq. America and the coalition, we thought of Iraq as an enemy, not a friend. Because of this, we saw Iraq, a Muslim country, and there were Muslim terrorists that blew up the World Trade Center. We saw it as a common enemy. We saw it as like a common problem. So we figured, well, they must have caused it. George W. Bush used the weapons of mass destruction to actually justify this war. He believed there were weapons of mass destruction being hidden in Iraq after the war of Iraq and Iran. This simply wasn't true. You will hear people try to tell you that it was, but I have a few facts here to tell you otherwise. First of all, Saddam's regime gave up on searching for weapons of mass destruction by the mid-1990s. This is from Operation Iraqi Freedom, official documents from the government. Also, on the 30th September 2004, the U.S.-Iraq Survey Group found that there was no evidence Saddam Hussein ever possessed weapons of mass destruction stocks. If Iraq had existing weapons, they were incapable of any military capacity. However, Bush would not really pay attention to this. Bush would say he removed 2 tons of enriched uranium, which in fact was yellow cake, but it should be noted that yellow cake doesn't really mean much. In fact, the survey found that the nuclear program that Iraq had was still in a very rudimentary state. Because of this, you would think it'd be almost impossible to frame Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, but it really wasn't. People believed Iraq was a serious threat, like a Hitler, but they weren't. They just weren't. I believe that people thought of him as an enemy because of the reasons I listed before, in almost similar way to Hitler and really hated the Jews. A lot of Germany hated the Jews. Like, if you read Mein Kampf, the Germans kind of had a reason, like, they kind of had a thing there, but it wasn't to the point where you should kill them, like, obviously, and I'm not going to sit here and say the Holocaust was good. I'm not going to sit here and say anything like that. But George W. Bush wasn't that different. George W. Bush took a common enemy, scapegoated him, and invaded him, just like the Germans invaded Poland. However, it's a little bit different. There was actually one case of a confirmed chemical gas attack, which was made of sarin gas, and they don't even know if it was Iraqi soldiers that used it. However, all it did was make the U.S. soldiers feel very nauseous, and they had dilated pupils. It was so like diluted. So this makes you think that it was left over from the Iran-Iraq war, not used prior, which would make me believe at least that well, it just simply isn't true that they were producing chemical weapons like the U.S. thought they did. Because of this, I would call the war in Iraq just an invasion attempt. Perhaps it was to get oil, like some people say, some other things, but to me, it's just we wanted to get our aggression out somewhere, like a little baby almost. In the wake of the war in Iraq, George Bush would also do a bunch of tax cuts. He would cut $1.35 trillion in taxes to attempt to revitalize the economy and eventually create more taxable income. However, this isn't really how it works when you think about simple economics. You cutting taxes to the top 1% or top 1/10 of 1%, however you want to say it, isn't going to create more taxable income in the future. If you want to do that, you need to cut taxes to the poor, but he didn't. He cut taxes to the top of the cream of the crop, didn't get enough taxable income, and that was the end of the game for him. The tax cuts didn't work, and we had to raise the taxes again because we were spiraling out of control in national debt. So, in conclusion, was George Bush a good president? Well, from his handling of the Iraq War, his handling of his domestic policy, his handling of the No Child Left Behind, and his handling of the 9/11 attacks, I cannot say I think George Bush was a good president. However, I can't say that I think he was a bad president either. I think he did a few things that were kind of scaremongering. I think he did a few things that were because he was scared. He won't say that obviously, but there's been presidents scared before. It's not unlikely. But I don't think he was a good president. I can't say it to you guys. So I'm gonna give him like a 4 out of 10, like maybe like a 2-star, 3-star president. We'll have some other people to compare him to later. Maybe we'll change the score, but for right now, that's what I'm going with. So finally, guys, I just want to tell you, please leave me in your comments what you think of the video, who you want me to do next, and please don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. This is a new series and even a new channel on this first video I'm posting, and I really want you guys to give me your feedback on what you guys think. I want you guys to know what different series I should do, stuff like that, and I definitely want to see your guys' comments. So leave me a comment, rate, and subscribe. Tell me what you want to see next. I'm so happy you guys clicked on this video, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it and watch more. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.